experience from the consumer's perspective. So it's not just the car, but when you ride the car, what sort of feel you get, what sort of smooth ride you get, what kind of a sense of security or safety you feel. It's not about the DO, but maybe the confidence you feel when you have it on you. And so it's not something new that it's we talk about experiences. But what's changed is that when we were in a fundamental era of maybe television and print, there was only so much that the brand could convey to the consumer in terms of an experience that the consumer could get with that brand. But what's enabled now, with the changing consumer and his expectation, the changing environment, the technology, the generation, you're actually having a brand which can enable an experience of using that brand far better, far superior, without the consumer having to buy and then experience it. So even before that, and the consumer is somebody who's today, thanks to technologies, wanting those experiences before and to try them out, and then engage with the brand on the basis of that. So I think technology is a big more social. All of these digital enablement is making the consumer get the experience, and also new age aspects like activations and shopper marketing and all of those bring the experience closer, and that's going to be the future, and increasingly so. So those elements will be the key.
Karthik?
Fundamentally, experiences are the kind of currency to build great brands. And if you were to look at your own lives, what do we remember? We may not remember an ad, but we may always remember some experience, good or bad. So if brands can do and give positive kind of reinforcement of experiences, I think that's a good starting point. And I'm going to pick from each of the other panelists. I think they've touched upon very important aspects. Most human reactions are actually emotional, and I think a lot of work in the area of neuroscience actually proves it. There's nothing called really rational information. So experiences, if done well, can actually trigger some of those emotions and carry for a long period of time. The second point is, Sanjay touched upon that, which is about data and technology. I think they are very important components which are helping us to create newer and different experiences. Last but not the least is there are three types of experience. Earlier we had one-way, then we had two-way. One-way communication is, let's say, a TV or a print ad. Then we started having two-way communication, SMS or a missed call. Now we have what is traditionally called a 360 or a multi-touch point experience. And the key to all these experiences are what I believe is receptive moments. You just can't create experience at any point in time. You need to understand the consumer better, understand their receptivity moments, and if we can capture that well, I think we have great stories to tell about the brands.
Thanks. So we've got some good concepts here of experience, trust, technology, emotion, data, and the whole environment of change. If I go around you once more, is there an example you can give from your professional life or your opinion of a brand that's actually made the transition because they've observed the consumer change and therefore the brand has changed? And of course, we'll have many examples of brands which haven't. So if you want to pick up an experience that you've seen, you've pioneered, you've pushed, and you've seen something like this?
Okay, lots of examples. Some of them are related to campaigns, very small tactical campaigns to very large campaigns. One such example is for a client of ours, which is Tata Sky. They were coming up with a concept of this pause button, and many of you must be using it. You record and do that. So you have advertising around what the concept is, but how do you actually deliver that experience? So we did a very simple thing using a relatively one-way media, which is television. For a cricketing moment, we took cricket because it's almost like a religion in India. Key cricketing moments, when a shot is being played by a batsman, Indian batsman, we actually paused it live, and then it was played. So what happens is you get one, aha, I never expected this, and all you have to just do was a simple messaging around that. This is exactly what, had you got Tata Sky, you can do it. And of course, it won a lot of awards, but the key point here is you can, even with some of the traditional media, create experiences intelligently. This is one example. There are many other examples. The other example one more, and then I will leave it for others to speak, is Google, which is a technology giant. Now, what can a technology giant have a problem in terms of technology? And they did have one a year and a half ago during the election time. They had Hangout. Many of you must be using Hangout. So Hangout, one challenge is you can only have up to 10 people. You can't get more than 10 people. So for the general elections, we had Google Hangout on air, but we wanted more people to participate, and that we could do that experiences by integrating telephones or mobile phones, because many of them were not even, say a common man is not using a smartphone. So we gave them a 10-digit number. You could actually listen to a recorded message, and then you can pose questions. So even technology barriers, which are part of some of the brand's DNA, can be, and we gave a great experience, because a normal Hangout will say touch about 4,000 people. You would actually increase it by a huge margin, about 15-20x. So experiences not only help in creating something emotionally, but actually can solve some brand problems.
Manish?
So I would pick up one example from Unilever first, and perhaps other examples later. If you look at a brand, Surf Excel, what it believes in, the philosophy of the brand is that you should let children experiment and play on their own and learn in their lives. Because if they don't do that, then they won't get the right values. Which is why daag achhe hain, because it's okay to get dirty. That's how you learn. Now, to bring that brand purpose to life, to say that are your kids ready for life? One of the things that we did was that we created a campaign, an activation around which children could come and spend their time with, let's say, older people who are living alone and don't have anybody to sort of spend time with them, or a child who's sharing the birthday with another underprivileged children. So when you do activities like that, you bring to life the real purpose of the brand, which is let the children experiment and play with it and get them ready for life, which therefore doesn't get restricted just to the advertising saying daag achhe hai, but you sort of let consumers experience what the brand really is all about.
So that's about having a purpose, right? On this side of the table.
I will stick to the example from our own work area. We, as a corporate, have always tried to build our brands around the core value of trust. And three examples which come to my mind, which I can share over here, is we recently had a big cataclysmic change in our the way we have worked. We have a JV getting split. We have to create our own technology, and hence our technology needs to be trusted by the consumer so that he gets coming back to us. And at the same time, we also need to increase or expand our portfolio. Couple of steps which gone into ensuring or strengthening these proposition. One, of course, was to reaching out to women with our women-oriented product, which is the scooter called Pleasure. One of the big roadblock in experiencing pleasure by the women was the fact that most of the women don't know how to start riding. Nobody teaches them driving. Men in the household, they get to learn driving by riding on an uncle's scooter or a friend's scooter or friend's two-wheelers. Not many avenues are available with the women folk in the country, unfortunately. So there's a structured program where we reach out to people or reach out to women especially, and it's branded as Chalo Sakhi Pleasure Seekhe.
Nice.
So this is just to get women trained by women riders how to ride a scooter, and so that when they are into this decision-making phase, they should ideally come to us. The other fact was this whole development of technology piece which has gone into it. Now we are developing our own in-house technologies. We have set up our CIT, which is CIT in Jaipur, Innovation Center in Jaipur. When our first engine came out of our studios and out of our labs, we sent a cutout section of that to all our touch points, whether they are service centers or whether they are showrooms, just to make consumer who are coming over there to check and feel that this is the product which is developed by us and which is a reliable thing which is going into your vehicle, and you are not getting something which is inferior or is not up to the mark. The third thing is to reach out to the larger consumer. When the new green factory concept, the new factory in Nimrana came in, we reached out to a larger set of consumer through this Nat Geo program, the Mega Factories, where we have featured 1 hour show of our own, what goes inside it, what kind of technologies we work, what kind of throughput speeds, and what are the processes which we work before the product comes out. So the common theme in all those 3 activities is to build and enhance on the trust of the consumer on the product which we are making available to him or her in the country.
Sanjay?
Yeah, I'll talk about a couple of experience changes which have been brought about thanks to technology. So there's one really, really interesting cosmetics brand which has done this. Now, visualize the way cosmetics are purchased by women. So, whether you purchase in-store or online or whatever, I mean, you're picking things, you're picking shades, it's lipstick or eyeliners or whatever, and you are visualizing potentially that how it would suit you as a consumer. And it's not always an easy choice to make because there's so many shades and so many different types. Maybe at a store they might let you try some of them out, but still it's a limited range that you can try out because how many can you really do? So there comes technology in the form of an app, which is an amazing augmented reality app. You just look at you see your face on the screen. In virtually no time, your face appears there, and pretty much like how Instagram filters work, you can just swipe things and you can see different looks, your face, how it's looking with different shades. Now you can pick a shade, you can out of a whole bunch of them, you can pick this, you can pick that, and keep changing, playing around infinitely virtually till you find the one where you are looking the best. That's it. So, it's an experience of a different kind of trying out the cosmetics. And with one click, you can actually push them into a shopping cart and purchase the specific things you bought. So amazing use of technology in terms of creating an experience to the consumer, very different from the standard. Something from very similar from the Miram world in our agency has done this, created something called a magic mirror, which is in store. So it's in a jewelry store. You walk into the store, and again, there's a whole lot of jewelry. Maybe typically artificial jewelry. You just look at yourself in a mirror, and you can keep picking a necklace or earrings or whatever, and they keep showing up on your face. In the mirror, you see them, and including if you shake your head, I mean the jewelry is swinging, so you just exactly get a feel of how it looks on you. A completely different experience of buying jewelry. So that's how technology is enabling experience changes in this manner.
Great example.
I want to talk of something that probably is not well known to people in this room, because technology and the experience is pretty much that's there in the news, right? What's happening in rural India? The part that we perhaps don't know as visibly, some of us may not, some in the room do. How are experiences changing for them? And what is being done to take them forward or to look at their experiences, because they may sometimes, for reasons of economic necessity, be behind the curve. You want to go and talk about what's happening there?
So I think it's a great question, and in my mind, technology is enabling better experiences even in rural India, and it's no longer a constraint that the village is far located or geographically not necessarily easily accessible. So I'll give you an example. It is now in some of the villages you would see, even if there's a single small store in the village, you would see a huge big digital display where women can go and sort of shop around for the products. You touch, if you can look at shoes, you can look at skin creams, you can look at makeup, dresses, whatever. You look at that on the screen, just touch at what you want to buy, and it gets delivered to you in a couple of days in that particular shop, and you go pick it up. And that, I think, is, I don't have to have a smartphone. I don't have to have an app on my phone anymore to buy it. I just go to a store. And technology companies and companies are enabling sort of to do that through a store. And I think that is where technology is bridging the gap and bringing sort of consumers from rural India to the same speed, to the same level.
Also, I mean, if you think from a rural India and the farmer as a consumer, from a B2B perspective and not necessarily just home products or something, and what some of the services, including the e-choppers and others of the world have done, is seriously made him see from his work, get information so much better and faster, whether it's market pricing of the products, which is coming close, and whether it's weather, or whether it's recommendations for fertilizer, stuff like that. And it started happening even before smartphones. I mean, it started happening with a simple SMS structure. There were some SMS codes which you could put out and get updates on weather, on market price of specific things. And then, of course, with WhatsApp and all, it's only got better. So as a farmer, as a consumer, I mean, it's already, technology is impacting. There were even services where, recognizing that it's sometimes even reading is not, sometimes the literacy levels may not be good. So you could dial a number and a voice call back is, by voice telling you what you want to hear. So there are ways in which simple technologies overcome the challenges of, needing smartphones and internet and all that. Of course, with the penetration of smartphones, it's going to be even better, I'm sure.
Of course, whatever I will discuss will be colored from my understanding of my own category. We actually try to understand these rural customers slightly in depth. According to us, there is nothing called rural market, and India has become one big homogeneous market. The rural market, which we continue to give a nomenclature or describe, is more of a life stage rather than a separate market in itself. And the case to point that the foundation of my argument is there is no difference in aspiration level of people who are residing in urban areas or people who are residing in rural areas now. There is no difference in access to information in urban areas, rural areas. You look at the penetration of mass media, whether it is TV or radio or internet. Internet not through broadband but through phone. Very interesting data point which I can quote from our internal sources. 95% of people who are buying or who are consuming two-wheelers have a phone, any kind of phone, a feature phone or a smartphone. 50% of them had Facebook IDs, and that is data point of at least 2 years old now. Now, with this, what are they doing? They are doing all kind of transactions which their urban counterpart is doing, whether it is checking their bank statements, checking SMSs for their money coming in, going out, booking tickets, trains. So this whole consumption and awareness or the knowledge difference between an urban consumer and rural consumer has actually practically come down to almost negligible. This actually is driving a very different kind of a behavior or a different kind of a expectation from the brands, and obviously it's going to continue in the future. For my category, it puts in a lot of focus again on trust, because the trust nuances over here are different. The manifestations are different, and that's the kind of deliveries he desires from my brand, and that puts a pressure on my supply and distribution and the programs through which I need to reach out to the consumer in rural areas.
Karthik, you want to add something?
I'm just going to talk about, I think first of all, it's a great question. One of the campaigns we did about a year and a half ago, which was for Tata Tea, which was during the election time. 50% of Indians are women, in fact 49. So the campaign, so many of you would have seen the Jagore campaign, which is a social awakening campaign. So the goal of this campaign actually was to kind of, particularly the women who are not being heard in society in general, how do we enable them to make an informed decision and make voting mandatory? Otherwise, people, if you don't vote well, are not going to get a great government. So this campaign actually was conceived as a television campaign, but rather than TV ads alone, what we did was we took a lot of protagonists across various competing channels like Z, Star, Colors, got them together, and also a lot of the news channels. And we kept on giving empowerment stories. Why it is important? Because they are seeing these shows on a daily basis. So, and they look up to these stars, kind of their alter egos, to push them to make a decision and actually vote. It did wonders for the brand. Of course, one of the byproduct was great sales and all that happened. Well, that was not the primary goal of the campaign. Out of the 534 odd constituencies in India, we got missed calls and actual recordings from 503 districts. That means we have touched entire India. And issues were bucketed, 12 broad issues. And you'll be surprised, and it's great. The first biggest issue in India, unfortunately, is domestic violence. So we have collected a lot of data around from this, and subsequently we've used this data on further campaigns. So really experience and taking it to the next level in terms of actually making some change in the lives, in the consumer's life beyond just some sales for the brand.
So I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm coming back to the audience. I'm going to take 2 questions. If you have it ready, then put your hands up. If not, we will go through one more till you get warmed up. So don't feel shy, because we have an opportunity, right? So I'm going to ask a populist one, because then we can keep this one short, right? So a brand that's big in news is not one that relied on technology. I don't know if it relied on significant consumer change, but it went back in a way to its roots. It's pretty obvious, it's Patanjali, right? How do you decode that for the audience? Manish, I'm going to start with you, pretty obvious.
Okay, a lot has been said and discussed about the brand in the media, etc. So I think as the globalization happens, and now that India has globalized, and it's been 25 years or so since that has happened, and with digital coming in, with the fast pace of changes in the technology, there is a need for people to go back to their roots, and there is a need for almost saying, what are my roots, and can I make my life simpler? And I think that's the insight on which Patanjali plays quite well, because then it's going back to Ayurveda, it's going back to natural and simplicity. And I think that's an insight on which the brand is hooked on to. And it's not that Ayurveda or natural brands didn't exist in the country before. We had lots and lots of brands, from Dabur to Himalaya to some of our own brands were there. But I think this whole going back to the roots, going back to simplicity, going back to authenticity, and Ayurveda being a root there has caught the fancy of the people, because the time is absolutely right. And I think that's making a difference, which is interestingly a completely opposite trend, or a completely opposite direction to the technology and the experiences that technology is enabling. But any trend is not powerful enough, I believe, unless you have an equally strong opposite conflicting trend as well. And that's what makes it stronger, because there are 2 opposite forces pulling to it.
Sure.
So that's my take on the brand.
Yeah. Anybody has a view otherwise? Audience, are you ready with 2 questions? Is anyone ready? No? Still feeling shy? Anybody wants to put that? Yeah, there's somebody at the back with a hand up. If you stand up, it'll be easier for him to spot you. Do introduce yourself, if you don't mind.
Hello. Yeah. Is it audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm Amit Pofle. I'm working with Pidilite Industries, and I'm into the insights role. My question is that brand experience has always got 2 outputs largely. It would be either a good experience or a bad experience, right? What the brands have been doing traditionally is, harping more on the good experiences, trying to showcase them everywhere, every possible medias they could. However, bad experiences and what brands have done to overcome those bad experiences have been, not highlighted as much. How important do you feel, highlighting these bad experiences which consumers have had, and what brands have done to overcome those bad experiences? How important do you feel this aspect is?
Anybody? And everybody.
I think it's an interesting question today that, earlier, so good and bad experiences were always there. It's not something which is happening today. But what's happening today is the amplification of the bad experience thanks to social media, right? So earlier, if one consumer or one geography or one region had some bad experience, it would remain isolated and the brand's fortunes might not have affected so much. But today, thanks to the amplification that any of these cases get, and especially bad news travels faster, there is a risk for the brand, and there is no choice but to address it and do something about it. And a classic example I can remember is that of Flipkart, and the fact that at one of the promotions there was a lot of flack that it got, that they could go out to the public and actually say that yes, we messed up, we screwed up, and we're learning, and we'll fix it. Now, it was a bold thing to do. I mean, very, very unconventional from traditional brand positioning and what brands do. They try to push it below the carpet and try to say that it never happened, or make it sound, try to crush that noise. But here was a brand which was willing to say that, yes, we got it wrong. Now, that it's a new age brand, it's an internet-based brand, it knows it has to ride on the consumer sentiment, it can't hide away. And I think it was, as far as at least my understanding is, it was loud. So from a brand's point of view, what's necessary is to listen to your consumer actively, know when these things are happening, don't be shy of admitting or accepting, but go out and fix it. You may not always need to go public, but at least for the consumer concern, address it, fix it, because that's what's called for. A small thing starting today can, suddenly become a mountain from that molehill if you don't address it, and I think it's very necessary.
Very interesting example Sanjay gave. I'm going to give you a different take on that. He spoke of a brand which actually made a mistake and then it kind of went ahead and fixed it. What if the brand has not made a mistake and it still has a potential to get penalized? And it happened very recently. The Tata Motors Zika launch. So they had got this car called Zika. Nice sounding name, everything happened. Just before the launch, the Zika virus actually hit. That's nobody's fault. And the social media picked it up. And in auto, first port of call is people do a lot of searches. In that situation, brand did three things. One is immediately reacted. They didn't sleep on it. Second is involve the consumers. And actually we ran a kind of a name hunt. We said, okay, we understand there's a problem. Can you suggest some alternative name? And that's how the name Tiago, which was coined, was actually given by a prospective consumer. It's not given by the brand. So sometimes bad news can be an opportunity, but if you have to act fast. I think the key message in both of these examples is today you do not have an opportunity to put your issue under the carpet and hope that let that guy keep screaming, I'll sleep. Every single response, even if it looks small, sometimes it's even instigated by competition, you have to be nimble enough, agile enough actually to act on it. That's, I think, the message.
Somebody else has a question? Yes. So there were two hands which went up. Okay.
Okay, I'm Aishwarya Jain and I'm from the ISDI WPP School of Communication. So since the question of Patanjali's come up, like we all know that recently Patanjali came with its jeans. So the point is that since India is becoming a country where we say that now the brands are appealing to the emotional side of it and on the esteem part of it. So will Patanjali ever be able to create such a brand image where people have an esteem or a feeling like if we wear something like Zara, we have a good feeling about it. So will Patanjali ever be able to create that for at least a crowd like us?
I think you should tell us that, and Patanjali is probably best equipped to answer that question, right? I don't know if anybody wants to comment on it, right? But what do you feel?
For the timing, not now, but definitely what are the future prospects sort of? Because it's a 3,000 crore company.
Give them a negative view.
No, absolutely not. No, I think that it depends a lot on the way they play the brand. So the values that they're playing on, the values of the brand that they're creating, how do they sort of further progress those values? And there is a lot of sense of nationalism and the pride in being national and a local brand, etc. That's also built into the brand. So how do they take it forward? How do they build it forward, etc. Will make a lot of difference on whether it becomes a label that you wear with pride or not.
I think the other thing is that there's no one India. There are many Indias, so what might appeal to you, it may not appeal. But there is still a large enough market. The point is just that somebody may wear being human on their shirt. Somebody might wear a Patanjali on their shirt with equal pride. So it's just what appeals, what values appeal to you. So, and there is a large enough audience for both or many of these. So I think it may still succeed.
Good point.
Patanjali is trying to address a lot of categories, and Patanjali coming out in jeans is not for the first time that any Indian player is coming out in this segment. You may recall that a few years back, Arvind Mills used to be the largest denim supplier in the world. But honestly, none of the Irwin Mill brand, if my memory serves me right, is probably one of the leading jeans brand in the country as well. And it is no lesser Indian. So I'm not sure how they are going to play out their foray into this apparel jeans business. Let's see. There is a premise, and they have a lot of work to do. Let's see how it unfolds.
So one
It's
of the
not
big,
going to be instant success for them.
we hope you buy a pair of Patanjali jeans and share the experience. I'll come back. It's fair to get this. We'll come back again, right? So one of the big things that, particularly the West adopted well, I don't know if in India we've done a good job of it, is the whole idea of collaboration, right? If you want to create change, it's very obvious that all of you and many people in the room talk to consumers, understand the insight, figure out what needs to change, anticipate or respond, right? There's another school of thought where you typically take that view, but you sit with your engineering, your R&D, your innovation lab, and you create something new. Because what's happening in the world and everybody participating in public platforms, one of the exciting ways to actually create brands and changes for brands is to collaborate with partners, competitors, technologists, whatever you like, design, right? Let's talk a little bit about what you see, how you see that process happening in India. Is it happening? Is it happening enough? What will accelerate it? Is there a risk? Is it a competitive advantage?
So I think, if I may go first, I think that a lot is happening in that space and a lot is yet to happen for sure. So to give an example, in the world of media and advertising, for instance, is that user-generated content, for example, is becoming quite big already. So I don't have to make my ad anymore, but I get consumers through social network, etc., to create an ad for me, what they think is right. And you can use the user-generated content, for example, for a long time instead of you having to make your own ad, which is a great example of collaboration. Or another example is, what we've done on a couple of brands like Axe, for instance, is that you actually create, I don't remember, some 200,000 variations of the same ad. And the variations, of the same ad, but variations were created with the consumers. So you serve different things depending on who the target audience is on digital, depending on who you're targeting, etc. So user-generated content is an example of collaboration, which is directly with consumers, not just with design partners or R&D or anything of that sort.
From the world of advertising and media, I'm just going to do a build on what Manish said. I think if you see 20, 25 years ago, we used to have actually a single agency kind of a concept, a single creative agency, it had media, everything. And over the years, starting somewhere in the early 90s, that kind of started to disintegrate. So then a lot of specialists were born. So you had a creative agency, then you had a media agency, direct market agency, so on and so forth. I think there's now some kind of a different wisdom coming back, and we see many successful models of all of this coming together. From the client's lens, if you were to argue, it's extremely difficult to operate with 30 partners. Just imagine a chief marketing officer have to call so many people. The second issue is one of culture. Each agency or each partner may have a very different culture, and if you don't get them together, it's always not the best for the brand. And if you were to now see what is happening in the West, even the concept of work is getting questioned. It's more project-based approach. We don't know, and I'm not a futurist. I don't know whether 15 years or 10 years from now, whether the concept of work will hold true. We may all work on exciting projects which are meaningful to us, and then create something, and then move to something else. This actually the movie industry does brilliantly. There's nothing called, like, very few companies are that, I'm particularly talking of India. They come, they do a film, they all collaborate. So I think broadly my sense is collaboration does add something new, different, which is useful. But compared to what is happening on the West, there's still a long way to go.
Anybody here?
I think from our world, from the agency world, I think one of the biggest challenges which we've been facing, especially coming as I do from a digital agency, is when we work with the mainline creative agency and we're working with the brand. I mean, both the brand as well as the creative agency have been experimenting as to what's the real right model of servicing. So does the brand work with one agency and that agency brings in whoever they want to? Does the mainline agency inculcate digital skills inside, or works with somebody else. So these have been challenges which have been, faced. I think we still not got the right model. I think a lot of experimentation out there. But we had a very interesting conversation day before yesterday with the CMO, and both J. Walter Thompson and ourselves, Meram, were in the same room, and he says that, look, so far whatever has happened, I've seen Meram, I've seen J. Walter Thompson, but tomorrow I want to see one unit. I mean, how you do between yourself, it doesn't matter, but I want to have just one single conversation. And so we are forced to collaborate. We are forced to not only collaborate, we're forced to work really, really integrated way. So our creative guys sit with the mainline creative people, work together, ideate together, work, create campaigns together. So that's definitely the way, I think the world's likely to go in our business. From a brand side, I think one of the classic examples of collaboration was with Uber. So Uber comes to town, and one of the big conveniences it offers to us consumers was in the morning we're catching a flight, we don't have to wait at the airport and look at Chutta, you can just walk away because it got a credit card inside. Except that it hit some credit card financial roadblock and they were not allowed to use credit card payments. Thanks now to collaboration with Paytm, it's like you still get the same convenience. Two big brands, Paytm, Uber, collaborate and still offer a convenience to the consumer of having the same, cashless travel. And amazing collaboration works well for both and works well for the consumer as well.
Sure. I think you're saying the institution of marriage has potential hope, right?
These days, innovation is not restricted only to R&D labs, and innovation can come from any part of the ecosystem in which you operate, whether it is consumer, whether it is your internal teams, whether it is your competitors also. And in our category, we are seeing it on an increasing pace and increasing scale, where different teams collaborate to address a particular concern or a particular issue which has been raised. And as we see it going forward, it's going to increase. But collaboration with competitors in our categories in India is still some way away, and I don't see it happening in the near future.
So we are still orthodox, and I think perhaps to some extent the orthodoxy stems from the class of shareholders, right, and stakeholders, promoters. Yes, there is a whole new breed of people which are promoting new ways of eating, new ways of grooming, new ways of working, and technology at play, right? Where is the stakeholder in the conversation of changing the brand experience, anticipating a new experience, and crafting that new experience? Outside of funding for it, what is their conversation? So you talked about, societal change. You talked of purpose, authenticity. What's that conversation happening with stakeholders and shareholders?
So if I were to give you my perspective, I think shareholders bring in a certain perspective, and I don't think shareholders' perspective is only to get maximum return for the money in the immediate term. I think there is a lot of long-term view that shareholders have as well. And generally the thinking goes is that if you keep your biggest stakeholder, which is your consumer, if you keep your consumers happy, then that will keep the shareholders happy as well, instead of it being the other way around. But I think what shareholders also need to understand, and are understanding more and more, is that if you have a brand with a purpose, if you're genuinely adding value to consumers' lives, then that's where your sales, your return for the money will come from as well.
You would have seen it working through multiple organizations, right? How do you see those stakeholders?
I think there are two key factors which motivate stakeholder. And one is vulnerability and the other is opportunity. And I think increasingly more is the vulnerability thing, in the sense that if I don't do this, is how threatened I am in terms of losing market share, sometimes survival. And we've seen like interesting brands also not survive, and because they didn't adopt, they didn't see the change coming in the face. So a lot of times it's vulnerability which drives a stakeholder's motivation to adopt something new, whether it's technology, whether, like we're talking about the bad reputation issue. I mean, you don't have a choice but to accept that, even if it means to go out in the market and say that, we made a mistake, because you don't have a choice. People are going to bury you without that. Of course, the other is opportunity. So if they see, while it may not always, sometimes it's all a short-term thing, people are always looking at this quarter and the next quarter and stuff like that, but at times your investments, like the app which I talked to you about, the makeup app, took 18 months in the making. So you want to see that, yes, I believe this will impact my future significantly. I mean, you completely changed the game in terms of cosmetic purchases. You got a huge head start, but for that you needed to be committed to doing this over 18 months as a stakeholder, investing into it to see that, yes, it's going to make an impact and how the experience will change, which will also result in commercial impact for my, so both vulnerability and opportunity are drivers.
Good point.
Abhay, you have a big promoter group over there, right? Which has a big influence on how people transport themselves.
I will take the arguments from both of the panelists. The investor is not only looking at return on the money invested. He is also looking at longevity of his brand, and also what will make him stay in the business in coming days. And that's where, from that point, there is always a push to the teams working for the investor to make the brand relevant to the consumer. The keyword becomes over here relevance, and hence all activities or all the steps which are taken is to make the brand relevant and give the kind of brand experience which the consumer appreciates and for which the consumer is willing to pay a premium to it. And that's what drives the investor for investing into newer initiatives, or whether it is staying invested into a long-term project, so that in future also the brand continues to be relevant to its consumer set.
Okay, so this is a bit of out of the blue for everybody here, for the five of us, as well as for you, right? There's a brand we all know, which has more than 1 billion investors. All of us in this room, in some form or the other, are a stakeholder of the brand. That brand is India. And if you were to decide what experience of India you want to change and how you want to change, what shape do you think it should take? How do you think it should change that experience? And I'm leaving this open to the audience to suggest, participate, and throw up, right? So if somebody wants to go from the audience first, fine. Somebody wants to go from the panel. But I want there to be a discussion of 5 minutes on how you change the shape of brand India. And you can't feel shy about it, because if I'm not mistaken, 99% of the people would be a citizen of this country, right? So, come on, somebody. Besides the panelists, I will come to them. No? Okay, so then they don't want to change India. They're going to sit there and wait patiently for, okay, there's somebody at the back. Yes,
Good.
great.
You're hoping that
Thank
they are
you.
the ones who are actually...
Thank you.
You're expecting us to give
Yeah.
suggestions, right?
Yeah, you're the Prime Minister now, decide.
Yeah. So basically, I think the largest issue is apathy. As we as citizens, the largest issue is apathy. Some of the problems we think are so big and so insurmountable that we choose not to do anything about it. But probably starting small. So, the whole concept of, for example, the ALM, the area management thing, which started off, but probably has not lived up to its potential. Saying, look, this is where I live, and I'll do my best to, ensure that this place where I live, my surroundings are the best that can be. I'll not allow corruption. I'll not allow the, local corporator to be corrupt. I'll ensure that it's, neat and clean. Start small. I think that's probably something that we can do, each of us in our own capacity. Because a lot of us, sit tight because we think some of these are so big and, that we can't do anything about it. So.
Okay. Come on, students of WBB school, you're not going to pass if you can't answer this question, okay?
Well, I'll go till somebody from the audience.
Okay, yes, DJ at the back.
Sure.
Yes,
Hi, this is DJ from the WPP school. I think if we really all start, for every one time we complain, okay, or maybe for every 3 times we complain, the way we're using social media, Twitter, Facebook, we get a chance. I think people are coming back and complaining about just about everything that's happening. As a habit, for every 2 complaints you put out, okay, talk about one thing you want to celebrate. And I think there's enough happening around us. It's just that we are blinded to it. Okay, we just so caught up with the complaints around us that we are blinded to things that we can celebrate. If we start doing it, I think we'll suddenly start seeing the country actually changing a lot.
Manish?
Absolutely. I think it's a great point you made. What was going through my mind is that it's very easy to complain about certain things that we as Indians don't do or do. But if we celebrate, picking up the point that you were making, if we celebrate some of the things that we as Indians make us Indians, then I think that will perhaps enhance the experience. So to give you an idea, it's very difficult to define what Indianness is, given the diversity that we have in the country, you know, the ethnicity, ethnicity, diversity, and so on. But if you pick up something like how we are rooted to a tradition, how we are rooted in a heritage and culture, but at the same time embracing the modernity, the modernity and the evolving, times. If we celebrate that, if we enhance the experience on that, I think it will take the India brand far higher and far ahead, which will remain rooted in the culture, but also embracing modernity and progressing forward. I think that will make a lot of difference, more than sort of complaining about things, I would say.
Okay, is there anybody else there? Now there was this group here, this very quiet group, who put their hands up, said they had only one app of a taxi service, right? So will one of you volunteer to say which app is that? And why do you have only one? Ola. Okay, so, and why do you have only one? So there's no confusion. So this audience is saying that they don't want this plethora of brands, they want singularity. Is that what I understand? Really? So how are you going to handle this? This is the future of India. Okay? They want only one brand and a category. Anybody a point of view on this? That's not that's not what business teaches us, right? You really believe that there should be only one brand? No? Somebody wants to talk about it? Yeah, go ahead, ma'am, please stand up.
I have another question.
Okay.
Okay,
Sure.
so for these guys who have only one app on their phone, the next question to them is, when was the last time you took a cab? And for the guys who took a cab while coming down to this session today morning, how many apps do they have on their phone?
Okay. Public polling happening. Anybody wants to help?
Because, so the regular users prefer having 2 or 3 apps so that if they don't get their cab on one app, they immediately switch to the other one. While the ones who have only one app either have self-driven cars or, have other means of communication.
No, I'm getting a great sense from the conversation that the institution of marriage is coming back, loyalty is playing up, right? So all the diversity we spoke of is going out of the window. Is that true? Is that false? Come on, guys who put your hands up for one app. You got to respond to this lady. Yeah, at the back there is someone putting their hand up. This is, yeah.
So I would like to answer to the question where you asked us why do we have just one app. The answer to that is because we had a bad experience with the other app, and that's what was discussed even in the previous session, that although loyalty is still prevalent, the problem is that when you're offering us so many things, and obviously one brand is going to be better than the other brand at some point in time, there will be a time when people will be fed up of the other brand and they will just choose to stick to one brand.
Okay.
So I
Thank
think...
you. So yeah. And then we're just going to close because I think the bell went off, right?
I was suspecting this, and I think it's kind of proven. I think that one app business is about loyalty, but it's temporary loyalty. I think at a time, it's one app, but if you have a bad experience, you'll switch, you'll drop that, and you'll get the next one. So you're easy to switch, but you're not carrying, you have loyalty for the moment, but it's not forever. It's probably a viewpoint.
Sure.
So I think we have to close. We'll do one comment and then maybe we'll take 1 or 2 questions. So tell us something about an experience you are designing of the future. You don't have to reveal a secret, but find somewhere to just share with the audience an experience you're designing for the future, which is for the brand. You talked about cosmetics and we know that.
Yeah. So I think I may not mention exactly what, but I think the interesting element, when we think in terms of experiences and brands trying to design an experience and earlier communicating it through mass media channels, And we had in the previous panel also a bit of discussion about how the one-to-one marketing and stuff like that. But let's understand what's the reality of it, right? So today, when I'm trying to design an experience for a consumer, it's not just about categorizing a consumer in terms of some demography mix. It's actually designing the experience for a specific individual, and which is possible. And I'll give you examples with that. So, of course, the technology means which are enabling that. So you should realize that you have to still do it at scale. So it's not about a small business where a kirana guy and a person walks in and he knows the name and everything because it's a one-on-one. It's not that. It's still to be designed at scale, and yet, you know, you got to make it as personal as possible. So how does that happen? And two key technologies, one which are already, you know, we should talk about in terms of, one is the whole programmatic media and stuff like that, which is creating a media communication based on who's seeing it, and not just what's the media vehicle or what time of the day it is or something. So based on where you came from, what was your journey, showing you something based on that. But even bigger is the whole concept of marketing automation, which is basically a marketing communication at scale, but personalized. So one example which we love to quote is the example of Nike. So globally, when Nike, I mean, this is a specific case, but when they put out an emailer, it's going out to something like 12 million people, right? However, in that emailer of 12 million people, there are actually 6 million unique instances of email, okay? What that says is that almost every other person is getting a mail which is specifically and custom designed for that individual, based on their behavior and whatever they have done, what products they are using, which Nike platforms they are connected to, you know, whether they're using these apps, whether they are basketball, running, XYZ, whatever it is, whatever is your behavior, a huge, humongous amount of data is mined, based on which there are scripts, algorithms which are running, and which create a mailer specifically based on that person. And you are hence seeing something which is very, very specifically designed for you. So you have used a certain app and there's a new version of that app or something. That's what's communicated to you. Somebody else sees something else. Now that's the start. But that's not just, okay, you know, so still that's happened. It goes beyond that. Based on what you do after that, do you open the mail? Do you not open the mail? If you do not open the mail, I can still reach you with a different message. If you are using a Nike app, it may come as a notification, custom made for you. If you're not doing that, you went to Facebook, you'll see a custom audience message, which is again tailored specifically to you based on your behavior. And these data points are constantly getting mined, and constantly there is an amplification of understanding of you as a consumer. So being personal, being relevant, being as customized as possible, and yet happening at scale. So that's the world we are getting into. And yes, we are working with some clients to create some of these experiences.
Manish? Okay.
For us, the future lies in helping our consumers with a green, affordable, reliable, personal mobility solution. So all of our activities, whether it is in terms of product experience or the brand experience, are going to revolve around these 4 pillars in coming days. And you will see a lot of investment going into the whole technology bit as far as the product delivery is concerned, about the processes through which it is manufactured, both the upstream, downstream supply chains about it, the distribution part of it, the servicing part of it. Also the way we communicate with our consumer, more and more it will be on digital platforms, and so on and so forth. So coming days for us is green, reliable, affordable, personal mobility solution for our consumers.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
I would say some of you might have heard there's one of the most successful programs of Netflix called House of Cards. And it is claimed that the program was entirely developed through analytics, by analytics of the data of what people are viewing and how much of which program they're viewing, and understanding that. Now, while that's already happening in the world of digital and the digital content, imagine that happening in the real world of FMCG products, where not only the conversation happens in the entire journey, consumer journey, and the path to purchase, and relevant, personalized conversation like you were talking about, but also having a product which is individually customized to you, and the information is available real time so that the customization can go on forever. I think that's the future we are looking at.
Super. Designed for you.
One campaign which we are currently working for a client, which is a technology client, sorry, I can't reveal the name, is if done well, so we're talking to a lot of traditional and even digital media, and particularly some of the digital owners are probably going to change their own products to suit this client's need. That's the stage where we are in. If done well, not only it will help brands sell that product better, will also create some parts of, some of the social issues this product has potential to solve.
We have time to take one or two questions or no? Okay, if there are questions, fast, otherwise. There are 2-3 people up there with their hands. Can somebody get a mic across to them?
Hi, my name is Ameya. I work with Ogilvy and Mehta in the planning department. My question was that you all have been saying that digital consumption is increasing in rural India. So why is it still rare in strategy discussions? We still tend to target rural consumers through non-digital media. That is one question. And secondly, are there any specific insights in terms of digital consumption when it comes to rural consumers?
Karthik, you want to respond?
Good question. First point on consumers in general, I'm going to oversimplify it maybe. For many products that are being sold in India, barring some of the FMCG, the so-called urban India is still relevant. And therefore, rural is not even getting included. There are many exceptions, Unilever, Hero, those are exceptions to the rule. So if you had to see the overall ADEX. But if you had to see the consumption, most of the consumption data, either urban or rural, is all going on video across the globe and even in India. What the trend tells us is that we are more or less as a globe becoming a more visual society. So that's one data point. Second, from a media plan and consumption of that, digital even for urban brands, it's a relatively new phenomenon. While there's a lot of talk about it, if you see the overall ADEX, it's only about 12-13% of ADEX which goes into digital. It's more about what works and what doesn't work. Finally, the marketer wants to see effectiveness for the brands, and we always use things which we know better. So television has been there for so many years, print has been there, but the digital ecosystem is not just one ecosystem. It's just not about video. There are blogs, there's social media, there's so many new things that you can do, and we haven't done enough as a market overall to know what works and what doesn't work. So if you had to go and ask many of our clients, they really have mastered, for example, on television, how much GRPs, what reach, how many weeks, the works. For 30 years we've been doing this as an industry. So we know enough about how it works. But digital, if you ask the same question, should I put the same TV ad in digital? Will it work? Should I create a new ad? There are lots of theories and sub-theories which are emerging, and those need to be tested. So I would suggest that it's a period where the testing is happening, but not to the degree that which all of us want. But if you look at consumers just outside this room, and even say common man, say a guy on the road, having say 5,000 rupees of income in a month, he will carry this mobile phone, he's consuming, that's also digital, and he's consuming a lot of video. So I think that while the trend is saying, the market is kind of lagging behind the trend to actually consume. Typically we've seen it will take a couple of 2 to 3 years to self-correct.
He may not have that much patience in his strategy room, right? Okay, one last question.
Hello. Yeah, hi, good afternoon, sir. My name is Ashutosh Trivedi, and I represent Sattler & Hennessy, which is one of the most promising pharma advertising agency in India. Let me advertise my agency also. So now coming to brand India, like you rose the topic. So I have a couple of issues, couple of suggestions you can say, not question exactly, how we can further help brand India shine more. So one of the important suggestions could be the language English. We talk a lot, see in Mumbai it might be looking a little like why this guy is talking about English, but if you talk about the tier 2 and tier 3 towns, where English has not reached up to that level which it should be, because we are simultaneously talking about the digital innovations also. If this digital thing is reaching into tier 3, tier 2, tier 4, or even rural India, it should also be supported with English language as well. Now, if you go to the tier 2, tier 3 towns or rural India also, the students start learning English at standard 5th or 6th. So they are not at par with their metro counterparts. So that is one thing which is very important. Hindi or other regional languages, definitely they are all good. They are good for our culture. And it might seem a little controversial also, but I think for brand India to shine further, English is the way to go forward to. That is point number one.
I last thought India was a secular country, okay? So let's keep it there.
Yeah. Point number two is again a slightly controversial suggestion, which is the brain drain. The government of India invests lots of money on all these premium institutes like IIMs and IITs. The fee is pretty less, very subsidized, but most of the guys go abroad and they help the economy of those countries flourish as against India. So again, the suggestion number two could be that there has to be some kind of cap that these guys should not be allowed to leave India. If Indian government is putting money on you, you have to work hard in order to flourish the brand India. So I don't know how it can be done, but it should be done. Suggestion number three is...
No, we are running out of time. I've got to ask somebody else. I'm sorry. It's the last one. That's it. Okay, the lady in the front, right in front of you. And that's it. Yeah?
Hi.
And it should be a question, not a comment.
No, it is a question.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Sanjana Shah, and I'm from the SDWPP school. I don't know how relevant this would be to this, but my question is about the real estate sector. I've noticed that marketing and branding has increasingly come to the forefront with people like Lodha, as a pioneer, and branding of places as New Cov Parade or Upper Worli is increasingly promising a certain brand experience to the consumer. How far will this continue being relevant, and will it work, this kind of branding in the future?
Anybody wants to answer?
I'll try and attempt to an answer. I think are you from Mumbai? Okay. So I think different cities behave differently. I think India doesn't have enough homes as much as people. So it's a demand-supply, mismatch. And if you were to take Mumbai as an example, the demand outstrips supply. So there's still in a market which is supposed to be correcting itself. We haven't seen any real price corrections, and therefore valuations going up. And when the deep desire to, and second part about real estate in general, it's a very emotional decision. You need to own a house. It's very, very emotional for, I think, most of us in this room, I would guess. So I think as long as that demand-supply mismatch is happening, you will have brands which are trying to cater to different needs. And branding is just an outcome of that, whether you call it upper, early, or whatever, but it will continue.
So I think you want some close?
Yeah, I was just saying that, however, the only thing is that if you look at a lot of these property ads, all of them promise you the same vision, promise you the same dream that, the dream house that you've been dreaming of, so to speak. I think that the time will come where you will start seeing a lot more differentiation in the kind of promise that they give you in the houses, because that's a reality. Everybody doesn't dream a house with a terrace overlooking the sea or something of that sort. So the industry would evolve. There will be maturity in segmentation and the kind of propositions they would offer.
So I think interesting themes. On the one side, you have trust, you have tradition. On the other side, you have the move of data and digital. You have stakeholders and brand owners wanting to change. You have consumer markets that we don't talk much about, rural markets that are going to change. And I think we live in that hope that all of you here who have been spending the last hour or so very patiently will take this vision forward. So thank you for being with us. Thank you for being a wonderful audience. And thank you to all of them for being able to share with you their aspirations. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's give them a big round of applause, the entire panel. Thank you very much.
Great. Like we told you before, we'd also like to hear your thoughts on everything that we've been discussing through the morning. And you can tweet and you can hashtag Brand Z India. That's with a capital Z and capital I. So please remember to do that. Well, in the interest of time, we're going to get straight into our next session, which is talking about the learnings from the 2016 Brand Z Top 100 Most Valuable Global Brands Report and Ranking. And to take us through that, we've got with us Ms. Elspeth Chung, Global Brands Valuation Director for Qatar Millward Brown. Give her a big round of applause. Here she is. We'd like to request everyone to kindly be seated so that we can go through our next session.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Brand Z. Welcome to Brand Z, and thanks for the morning. It's very, very insightful. We celebrated the 10th anniversary of our global Brand Z value brand ranking last year on NASDAQ. So today I'm going to share with you what we have learned from the brand value ranking in the past 11 years. So when people talk about Brand Z, the first thing that comes to mind is brand value ranking, and this is why we are here today. But in fact, on the back of it, Brand Z is the largest brand equity platform in the world. Since 1998, and that's way before our first global ranking, we have been interviewing more than 3 million consumers of the perceptions on 100,000 brands in 50 markets around the world. So it's not just the big data that makes Brand Z the most superior in the market. What happens is we have been tracking the share price performance of our global brand value ranking since the first year we launched it. And what we find is, number one, strong brands delivered exceptional shareholders' return. The second thing that we observe is during the market downturn, brand is the best defense mechanism. So please take a look at what happened after 2009. So you took the Brand Z strong brands portfolio less than a year to go back to the 2008 pre-crisis level, while you took an average of 3 to 4 years for the leading market indices to go back to the same level. Another observations that we have from the global brand value ranking is the surge of brands coming from the East. So back in 2006, we only had 11 brands. And this year, we had more than doubled of the brands coming from the East. And that showcases the shift of power on the global stage. So now, what have we learned so far? Number one, brand purpose. And brand purpose forms the foundation of building a successful brand. So purpose is not something big or vague. It's something that is making our lives better every day. And what happens is afterwards, we have to create value. And we create value through innovation. It's not any innovation, but localized innovation. So whenever we talk about innovation, we talk about it a lot this morning. It's always technology that we relate it to. But what I want to say is technology is very important, but at the end, it's only a channel. What matters the most is we are trying to upgrade our products, services, and content that are most relevant to the customers that we want to target at in the local market. So second of all, what I want to talk about is how to expedite brand value growth. So in Brand Z, we have done a research on brand experience, and we found that the brand image of an average consumer doesn't really change significantly unless they try a brand. So we developed this brand experience index to keep track of how brands evolve with brand experience. A very important thing that we find from this chart is if a brand provides very poor brand experience, you may risk losing brand value. So last but not least, a brand grows very fast. They underwent a very high growth phase. But there must be times when innovation is slower and we are not providing the best brand experience in the market. So this is when love comes into place. So love in brand C is a measure of emotional affinity. Brands couldn't survive on love alone, but love does have the multiplier impact. And always great love follows great functional performance. So now we have created this perfect formula of creating a meaningfully different brand. But please, this is not the end of the story, because the meaningful difference can be further amplified. So what happens is, for a meaningfully different brand, the brand value growth can be more than doubled if it offers great advertising at the same time than those who do not. So now it comes to the stage that we have to keep asking ourselves, number one, whether we are offering something to make people's life different every day, and whether our target consumers really think that we care. And that will not only let us survive, but win in the world of disruptions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Elspeth, for taking us through the entire process with Brand Z. Well, we've had an entire day of meaningful interaction, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to go back with great ideas, great thoughts on what it takes to build a brand of the future in India, especially. We have come to the end of the day in that sense with the presentations and the panel discussions, but I'm sure there's a lot of thought that we're leaving behind, especially with the millennial, okay, who we spoke about. The only thought I'd like to leave before you leave for lunch, and then of course you'll be headed to your respective places, is coming back to the idea of one app on your phone. I think the only thought is that today, when you're booking your cab, I suggest you check on the other app for a price surge. Okay, that's all, because it's all about the experience that you get, and it's all about creating those experiences in building the brand. That was the story yesterday. That will continue to remain the story for tomorrow. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank all of you. We'd like to thank all our panelists. Please give our panelists a big round of applause for taking time and being here with us. And ladies and gentlemen, do remember to tweet at hashtag #BrandZIndia, capital Z, capital I. Lunch is ready and served, and we'll see you later. Thank you.